We are here for our July 2nd meeting, and I will be calling this to order. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Present virtually, we have Gary Persinger, our commissioner, and Dwayne Hinks is also virtual. Virtual also for the committee are Kelly Baxter, Dave Davis, Courtney Estes, and present otherwise are the rest of the members except for Liam. And so we have a quorum. I recognize we have one member of the public. I do want to make sure everybody understands members of the public are welcome and we encourage public comment. It is going to be limited to 2 minutes maximum per subject, per person, and that will be monitored tonight, but each person has the right to speak who is not only a committee member, but also a member of the public. We have published the agenda for tonight, and I would appreciate hearing if there is a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? No objections. The agenda has been adopted. We've also had the minutes from the May 17th meeting published, and I would appreciate a motion to adopt those.
Make a motion to adopt the minutes of the what's the date? Sorry.
May 17th.
May 17th meeting.
And do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of adopting those minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Objection? No public comment in that regard. The agenda and the minutes are each approved. Turning to our action items. So the big one for tonight is going to be under A, which are the steps that have been taken towards the town looking into an overall resiliency plan. A lot of work has been ongoing, not only up until the May meeting, but substantial work since then. And we have a number of bulleted items, but what I want to do is turn it over to the subcommittee to discuss the work that's been done and how this will be proceeding. So I was told that Kelly and April would be the best places to start. So would one of you like to speak?
Sure. So Kelly, if you want to go first.
Sure. So, we reached, I personally emailed and spoke with some of the 4 people. I think we sent earlier a list of the companies that we got a hold of. Only one, I think you're familiar with our process was, we had put together a uniform list of questions for them to ask preliminarily. And only one really got back to us having accomplished that task. The other 2 that answered the email, and one said it wasn't within their scope of what they did. And the other said they could do it, but it wasn't sort of their forte. And then the 4th was unreachable. I couldn't, I called and called and called and got a directory that didn't work. I took a stab at some emails, and they're a huge, that was the AECOM. And my gut is we found the fit in the one who responded. They responded very thoroughly. They were highly recommended by Lewis. They've done contracts in the nearby communities, and they want the work, which I feel like, ultimately is an important part of it. And they gave us a rough estimate, and those are all in the notes. I guess as a subcommittee, my question is where to go from here. We have a record of who we reached out to and how they responded. and, what the next steps are. I mean, there's an infinite number of companies we could continue to reach out to, but the impression I'm getting is we're sort of a niche and being so small, and in our location. So I was happy to get the response we did from GMB. And then, I feel my intuition is it's ready to sort of move forward to the commission. I don't know if someone wants to add from the subcommittee their impressions.
Yeah, I do agree with that. We've looked at what some of the other towns are doing. We've looked at some of the meetings, bigger meetings. We've looked at the contractors, the funding sources. So I feel like we have a pretty comprehensive packet of information to move forward to whoever it goes to the next level. And then I guess if they have questions or want us to do something else or get some more information, then we can. But I feel like we've kind of exhausted our ability to get the information, that we've gotten all that we can, and we can move on.
So Gary, I'd appreciate your telling us how we can get this information best before the town at this point, with the committee having obtained the information that it has.
Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. What we need is really a scope of work to put before the town, so that the commissioners all know exactly what it is we're trying to contract for. There's no reason not to come forward with a single recommendation for a contractor if that's what you believe is the right choice. And GMB, I know, has done some work in this for us before, and some part of GMB I think has been involved in the town hall project as well.
So Gary, I apologize, but you're fading in and out
I'm sorry.
a little bit.
Sorry.
And can I use that moment just to interject real quick? Part of our recommendations did come from the town manager. So,
okay.
And they were the ones who, a couple of them were the ones who responded and just didn't feel like this particular area was best for them, that they would be better off having, after we've done this sort of resiliency study, to pick up the work from implementing better versus sort of analyzing.
And Gary, I don't know if you saw the GMB June response, but it was fairly extensive based on the subcommittee's questions that were sent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what work has been done can well be summarized. I think Sally's has prepared it into a sheet that I also had distributed, but I can send again, along with the GMB fairly extensive response in their letter to each of the questions posed. And so at this point, with those two, I'm going to call them productions or documents, is there anything more that the town would require, or can you take those and use those once we address it in this committee as to whether to vote in that regard?
Okay, I have not seen the GMB response, so that's something I need to review. But again, I think to bring this to the council, I think you really need a scope of work, so that and then a proposal from the contractor that addresses that scope of work and has a cost estimate on it. That's the most efficient way to get the council to deal with this. If you want to take a preliminary step and provide kind of a bullet point discussion of what GMB might be asked to do, and provide some sort of ballpark cost range, we could certainly deal with that and give you kind of a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or give you some reactions to what you've come up with so far. But again, if you want to get a final decision and actually get a project going, I think we need a scope of work, in the form of an RFP, and then a proposal from the contractor to address that scope of work.
I think what we should probably do is push it up to the council, have them look at the, sum of what we've collected from GMB, and give us some feedback in terms of how much more they think is needed. Because I think at this point, I don't know how well equipped we are to write a scope of work document for this. And I'd rather have the eyes on from the council and see what their thoughts are and how far we are from having something that can be acted on.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
I was definitely going to say the same thing. I feel like if there's more work to be done at our level, we need a little more direction, because I don't imagine gathering more information than we have without more direction. And one of my big questions, and maybe backing into the answer is a way to answer it, is, who's going to be managing this project? Who's going, and where does this project sit? Where does this contract sit? And, how do we get that person, or whoever that is, that body, the information they need? Because I feel like we've sort of run out of we don't have the expertise to write a scope of work.
Okay.
So,
Well, go ahead, Deborah.
I was just going to ask Gary if that might work, and between now and our next meeting, I will make sure to again send the GMB letter. Did everybody see that when I
I'm not sure because I'm in
circulated it?
this, I think.
Well, I will make sure that it is sent along with the summary that the committee prepared through Sally, and we can go from there. And we can, I want to hear from all the committee on this to make sure we've exhausted it, except for submitting those to Gary for the purposes that Dave has summarized.
Yeah, just let me interject here. I think the closer we can get to even a list of the various tasks that we would like a contractor to undertake, you're going to get a better result from the council. I don't want to take something to the full council that's too fuzzy, and you're going to get a better and better decision, I think, if we try to be as clear as possible about what it is this project would accomplish, and how it should get managed. I mean, it would be a contract with the town. It would be managed by town staff. There would be input on the project from the commissioners, and certainly this committee as well. But the overall management of it would be with the town, because it's the town contracting for the work.
So,
But I would suggest that we still push it as it is up to the council and ask them, and somebody from the committee be present to take and ask some questions of the committee, of the council, about, how would they suggest we take this forward? Bill Zolper may, want to now pitch in and help with the statement of work definitions. However we do that, I think we need more feedback. I don't think we're equipped to write a statement of work for this at this point. I think.
And Gary, I think you're at a disadvantage not having read the GMB response, because, in question number 3 that we asked all of them, they answer very well, and it says, can you briefly describe the process, including sequence and steps that you take to research and complete a study and final project report? They're pretty thorough in their answers, which is sort of teaching us as we go along. And aside from trying to interview more companies, I don't know how we can dial down more on the specifics.
Okay, that's fine. I will take a look at that, and once you finish your discussion today, I'll have an opportunity, and once we finish the meeting today, I'll have an opportunity to go back through that response, and I think construct some sort of a background document for the council to talk about. And circulate that back through Deborah. She can then circulate that to all of the subcommittee members, or to whoever wants to see that document before it goes to the council. But I just like to have a good background document for any agenda item that I have any responsibility for in the town council agenda, and with an eye toward what's the result that I would like to get out of it. And I think the result here is that we want to keep this moving forward. We want to figure out how to get this going, get a contractor identified, and get a contract, if possible, if we can identify the funds necessary to conduct it.
So at this point, does anybody of the committee have anything further that you want to say on this?
On A, those bullet points.
Yes.
I just wanted to add, I looked at a lot of the funding and their stuff, but I saw something yesterday about the BRIC grant, which is the big one we've talked about for funding this. It was on the national NBC News, specifically the BRIC grant was, and they were talking about an engineering association that did a big study of the infrastructure nationwide with climate change, so roads and flooding and all of that, and they were talking about the BRIC grant and how that had been so helpful. And I'm hoping that that will lead to maybe it getting reinstated. So that's the only update from the funding, but I do feel like there's resources out there still, even if not federal resources, and maybe some of the federal resources will be coming back.
On the summary that was circulated, does the BRIC, please, I apologize, I just don't recall, is the BRIC grant referenced? I don't recall.
Yes, it's the
Yes.
first one, building resilient infrastructure communities. So yeah, that's number one, and it had been stopped.
But they all have been stopped.
Pretty much everything federal has been stopped and canceled. But what I saw yesterday, I'm hoping, they did a huge report on the nation about the engineers, the roads are melting and, different things. And they talked about the BRIC grant, how that had been in place to help with this. And when I saw that, I felt positive or a little bit of hope that that might come back.
So we're gonna watch and see if it
Yeah,
gets
so I
revived.
don't think what we have for funding at this moment in time may be the same as 6 or 9 months from now, but it does give an idea that there is funding available for the resiliency plan work, but also for some of the projects, which I know Bill Zolfer is probably very well aware of some of those funding sources.
Anybody else on the committee have something to say?
Guess we'll go with hope.
Hi, Deborah. I came on late, but
Hi,
to
Leah,
Gary's
glad you're
point,
joining us. Thank you for logging on.
yeah. To Gary's point, I think it would be totally doable for the committee to provide just even just a couple bullet points, like an outline of what we want to see from this project. Even if it's just like a rough idea, brainstorm, I think we could provide that to the council.
So beyond what Sally had put together? That summary?
Yes, something more tailored to the town council, I think we could provide.
So I guess what I want to hear, before we hear if there's any public comment, is whether the committee wants to, or the subcommittee, thinks that it would be important to more tailor the outline beyond what's been done, or if we want to submit the GMB letter along with the summary that's already been done, at least get the town to respond so that we know perhaps how to better tailor the outline. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm looking
I think-
at the GMB, excuse me, the GMB response right now. And they do reference some of the things that they would do. Identify, plan and implement strategies for flood risks. And let me see, there was more down here. Reviewing topography, inundation potentials, flood maps, and potential solutions. So they put a few things in here.
My recommendation would be that Gary take a look, offer some feedback, and maybe we put a cover letter together that Liam can, tailor to the commission, because there is a lot of information in here. Maybe we just need to highlight something that summarizes it. I don't know. I would love to know. I don't know the commission well enough to know. So maybe if we got a little bit of feedback from Gary, we could, just tighten it up a little bit.
How about this? How about Gary, since you offered to do a little bit of help with this, and Liam seems to believe we can do something along those lines. Could the two of you do a quick version together? I think it would be better if Gary had some input to this process as well, because he knows best what the council might want. And between, the two of them, maybe we could have something that would be good enough to send up with the proposal.
So what I'm hearing is that maybe we want to table any kind of a vote, ultimately give Gary an opportunity to look at the GMB letter along with the outline that's already been prepared, and prepare a cover letter and perhaps an additional outline or a more refined outline. And that's what we would vote on at the next meeting. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, please.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing too, but I think we should include the previous one that you did. Sal, did you do a summary of what the other towns were doing? And
Yes.
yeah, I think we should also include that part of the work that we did, so that other towns are doing this, and what are some of the things.
So would that be part of the outline or part of the cover letter?
I'm not sure.
Maybe just supporting documents so they can see our
Yeah.
chain of work and our thought process. So they, to record the fact that we were methodical and thorough.
So what I'm hearing is that we are going to continue this topic with the subcommittee putting together a packet, which would be what we're going to submit to the town, which will at least include the summary that already exists, the GMB letter, a cover letter, and perhaps an additional outline with any other supporting documentation that would help to understand the work that's already been performed by the committee. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes?
Gary,
Yes.
Gary, are you okay with working with Liam on the development of that series?
Yes, that's fine. That works for me.
Okay.
I'll be happy to go through it and send Liam some thoughts, and we can exchange thoughts and then see where we come out from there. So I'm fine with that. Talk a little bit about timing. I don't know. I don't think you have a next meeting scheduled, but in terms of the council consideration, obviously you're not going to have anything for the next council meeting, which is July. I forget what the third Friday is. But in any case, we always meet on the third Friday of every month. So are we talking about shooting for August or September for some sort of presentation to the council?
I guess the committee needs to let me know if they think they can do this by August or not.
And is their agenda, is the town agenda pretty full this time of the year? Is it better to wait?
It varies. I mean, we generally add things to the agenda if they're ready and or they're necessary or timely, and if we have to spend 2 hours rather than an hour and a half, we spend 2 hours. So that's the way it usually works.
Why don't we?
So, I mean, go ahead, Dave.
Why don't we shoot for having a meeting in August, but get on the agenda for the August council meeting? And that way, I think, rather than let it wait until September, if we can manage to have a meeting and review the documents. I mean, we've got, 6 weeks to do that.
So maybe the week prior to the council meeting, and if it's on the third, if the council meeting is on the third Friday, that would be August 15th.
Okay.
So how far in advance, Gary, would you need to have information to be able to have this a consideration? Or do you want us to wait until we take, I guess we would need to have it together, vote on it, and if it passes, have it in sufficient time to you to be able to present at the August 15th meeting?
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think you're really talking about having a meeting in just about a month from now, so that the committee has time to vote, and then we can have the materials posted. It has to be posted a week ahead of time before the agenda. I mean, we could put the item on the agenda without having the materials done, but it would be better, if before the agenda is posted, if we know that we've got document that we definitely want to present to the council at that meeting. We'd be better off having that ahead of time. But if the timing doesn't work, it is possible to let it slip, have a placeholder on the agenda, and then get the document to everybody by Monday or so, or Tuesday of the week of the meeting. That's a little tight. You want to get people to pay attention to the document. So the more time, the better.
If we had the meeting the first week in August, that would give us enough time to have everything prepared, give us a month to prepare it.
Yep.
Review it and vote on it out of the committee to go to council, and it could be posted before the 8th, which would be the 7-day deadline.
So
Yep.
what I'm contemplating is August 1, which is a Friday for our next meeting. Do you think that's something that is realistic?
Friday in the evening is probably not a great choice.
I'm just kind of,
Friday at 4 p.m.
We'll still have the guards in here.
we have a problem. Yeah, the problem with scheduling on weekends or during the daytime is accommodating the lifeguards. So unless we did something crazy early in the morning prior to their coming in, we would have to do it around this same time during a weekday.
Would the purpose only be to vote for this?
Well, we would have a regular meeting, and so this would be certainly one of the major considerations.
And do we have to physically be here?
It can be virtual.
Everyone can be.
I just need to be here, and based on my
You
schedule,
need to be here, okay.
yeah, and I mean, I could do the 8th, but that's not going to give enough time for the August 15th.
What
so-
about a different weekday? What if it was like the 5th or the 6th?
My schedule, my schedule will not allow me to do the 4th.
To physically be there. Uh-huh.
So, and I think the 8th is not enough time.
So I don't know how the rules work, but could we just email each other and review it and say, yeah, this looks good?
No,
we have to vote.
We have to
Person.
be,
Or-
we have to have a formal meeting.
How about the first for like this time of day? I know it's edging into, Friday evening, but is that possible? Friday the 1st at 5:30, something like that?
The only other thing I could contemplate would be July 31, but that's not even a month. So I don't know how you feel about doing something that quickly. But if you think that's something you could do,
I think Thursday might be easier than Friday.
do you think?
Leah, I mean, I'm hopeful that it wouldn't be a large amount of work because I think most of the work is there. It's just,
So what I'm going to do is we will contemplate July 31 or August 1, and it will be one of those times, and we will move on for tonight, but we will plan on that happening so that we can get on the town's calendar for the 15th.
And that Gary and Liam, you'll begin work together towards that goal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect.
and I'm happy to, if you want the subcommittee, I don't want to speak for all of us, but if you want the subcommittee to review or whatever, but I think you have a vision, Liam, for what that might look like. So I think Gary's feedback is important.
So what we're going to do at this point, what I'm hearing is Liam is going to work with Gary. The subcommittee is going to then take whatever they produce and come up with a packet of information. We will distribute that packet of information that we intend to submit to the town. And it needs to be at least a week in advance so that we can then, at our next meeting, which will be either July 31 or August 1, vote that we, whether we wish to submit that to the town for consideration. Okay?
Perfect.
Is there any member of the public virtually? Kate, do we have anybody virtually? We have one member of the public present. Do you have any comment in this regard?
Yeah, I was able to.
So you'll need to be up at the podium, and there will be a 2-minute maximum.
Hi, David Thomas, 1 Reed Avenue. I was able to read yesterday the June 30th summary of the efforts, and it said that if you wanted to have or see a copy of the GMB report, all you had to do was ask for it. So can I see the GMB report?
Sure, I'll send it to you.
All right.
Just tell me your email address.
It's the same as always, dmtpa@verizon.net.
DMTPA
At verizon.net.
Yeah.
And there was a mention of a comprehensive packet and other materials and a couple of emails from other folks that responded. Is that also available?
So the packet that we're talking about is what the committee's going to create between now and our next meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Sally had said that there was a comprehensive packet that had been.
No,
No.
we're gonna work on that.
Okay. So beyond GMB, it's just the other two who said that it was not their forte and that they didn't do that, or?
One of them said, and I don't remember which one, that they do a lot of work, but on the implementation side, not on the
Right.
planning side.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to table A based on the work that is going to happen between now and our next meeting, and move on to B. That is anything more with local businesses. I don't have anything additional to add, but I do include these things on the agenda just to reserve in case something does come up. Turning to C, I do not understand there to be a marketing chairperson at this time. Gary, is that accurate?
That's correct. There still is not a marketing committee chair.
So with that in mind, we will again table that and turn to D. Again, that's kind of a placeholder. I think that may be premature at this point because it's all going to be part of A. But if anybody feels differently, please let me know. Any thoughts on that? And so that's going to then go to E. And what I wanted to remind everybody is that Dawn continues to post things online. Today, she sent some information which also got put on the town's website of additional information that is being provided to keep people informed. But we do have a subcommittee on that, and I just want to ask the subcommittee members, Mary, Courtney, Kelly, and April, if you all have any additional comments at this time.
No, but I think they were putting stuff on the town like newsletter as well.
Yes.
So it's available on the website, but things have also been pushed out on the town newsletter. Sometimes when we talk about things in here, they magically appear somewhere. So that's one of them. So I guess that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
And I mean, are we, are we saying that we can close this issue? Is there enough information being disclosed so that we don't feel we have a role in it anymore?
So, well, I think that that's an ongoing question. And so my feeling is it doesn't hurt to keep it on the agendas just in case there's something that arises. But as I understand it at this point, the committee hasn't felt that we need to take additional actions based on the fact that this is being addressed by the town fairly exhaustively. But if people believe differently, then please.
I think we came up with it because we didn't realize how much the town had done. But then we realized, oh yes, it's on the website, now it's on the newsletter. I'm not sure what else.
So do you want to close this issue, or do you want it to continue to be on agendas just in case there's something to address?
Could I interject something?
Please.
I think there's certainly a distinct difference between information that's available and information that is promoted to various audiences. And while the town has made a lot of information available, I don't know that they have done a lot in the way of promoting it. I think, this committee could be, if they choose to do so, could be involved in thinking through a little bit more about what the audiences are that should get this kind of information, what kind of information they should have, and how much emphasis they believe the town should put on pushing this information out to people. And if you think about having and developing a resiliency plan, and I'm thinking about a lot of what happened with Lewis, public education is a big part of promoting the idea of a resiliency plan, the need for a resiliency plan, and what the elements of a plan might be. So, I still tend to think public education should be a part of this, but, open to the ideas of the committee.
I don't know that anyone would disagree that the public education should be an important component. I just feel that it's more of the bailiwick of the marketing committee, which is still, in limbo. I don't know that we're really the committee who should be doing that dissemination without some help and guidance from the folks who, that's their specialty.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting you should do the dissemination, but just have some recommendations perhaps on targeting some of the information. Not the specific methods of getting it out to people, but who should the audiences be? Who do you think needs to be better informed about climate change and challenges the town faces, and what the elements of a resiliency plan might be?
Well,
what does the public need to do? Need to know?
The people who should be educated is a pretty easy task. It's more about how to reach them and what means we would have, and that really falls into the marketing's, responsibility.
So what I'm hearing right now is that there may be information that may need to get out to the public, but it's not an issue that we want to necessarily address today. Perhaps we keep it on the agenda for future consideration, and if and when a consultant is hired, leaving it on the agenda once that information and report is generated, that may be a time for us to address this for purposes of figuring out. Plus, if we get a chairperson for the marketing committee, we may want to reevaluate it. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
That's fair to say. I would just finesse it a little bit by saying we feel that the issue is addressed well, though, there's always room for improvement. Not that we're just sort of shuffling it to the side. We've inquired, we've seen it published, we understand where the information exists now. If you recall, there was one moment where we were talking about having real estate agents have to require to be a part of a selling pack, whatever. So my point is, we have looked into it and feel like it's being addressed, and whether we want to improve that is, maybe we leave it on the agenda.
So unless I hear anybody saying differently, we will not take affirmative action at this time, but we will continue to put it on the agenda in case it's something to address for the future. Do I hear anybody saying anything differently? Okay.
Yeah, we do have other public education outreach bullet points, so it may become a part of that.
But
in
right
the
now it's
future.
premature
Yeah.
to try to do something assertively for any specific issue. Is that fair to say? Is that generally where everybody's coming from? Any member of the public want to speak in that regard? There doesn't appear to be anybody who is present personally or virtually that has a comment on that, so we will table that one as well. That brings to F, and my gut on that is similar, that's going to be something that needs to be addressed down the road if and when we get a consultant, but if anybody feels differently, please let me know. No? So now,
Comment on that one.
okay, we have public comment on F. 2 minutes, please.
David Thomas again, still 1 Reed Avenue. I had been working on the issue of legislation post-disaster and the like, And I was interested to see the other day that in June of 2025, that is to say last month, there was online the Delaware Disaster Housing Strategy, which included temporary housing provisions, interagency collaboration, and encouraged local and legislative solutions, and which included and mentioned fast tracking of post-disaster permitting. And so that's the first movement that I know of in Delaware, although out of the Biden Center up at the University of Delaware, there was back around 2012, 2013, a pair of proposals for post-disaster ordinance adoption. One of them was 18 pages long, and the other one was 21 pages long. And I don't know that anybody anywhere ever adopted any part of that, except possibly up in Lewis now. There may be parts of that that survived from what I can see of the initiatives that Amy Marasco has had. So maybe 5 or 9 pages out of the 18 or 21 made it through, but my impression was that nobody wanted to adopt locally those longer provisions because there was so much, they fell under their lengthy weight.
So we need to sum it up. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to turn to point G on the tapestry project. And I know that April and I know April has worked on it. There has been some interest expressed from other committee members that they'd like to participate. So I want to hear first from April in that regard.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people looked at that information or just the short media blurb that was in the local paper.
The Cape Gazette article?
Yeah, if you all saw that. The part I really, and this is an outreach education type program, the part that I really liked about it is that it involved pretty much anybody could participate in it. And what I was seeing as the main focus of the project was getting ideas from the public in a public outreach forum, like setting a table up somewhere and you have some information and then you have them generate these ideas that they put on a little card and you put that on a big poster, kind of like those say a nice thing about someone buses that they send around, and then they have that at Shellville, or they have that at like the skimboard competition where they do that, where so there's some interaction. And anybody, you know, you could be a little kid or an adult, could have something to input and feel like they're a part of it. So there's the sharing of information, but there's also getting back information and ideas from the public. And so I see here to have a speaker, and so would you like me to try to see if I could get someone who has worked with the program to come and talk at our next meeting?
What is everybody's thought on that?
So I had some thoughts about that, and the what I had down is that that April, myself, and Courtney and Mary were all interested, and
Yeah, there was more people here.
Sorry?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that and make sure that was still true. My concern, having, you know, that what Lewis did was they cut out like felt footprints and had these blank, you know, felt different colored footprints with a question, with people writing messages to Mother Nature on the footprints. And then they used the collection of those, like April was saying, they went to various public gatherings for different events and had people answer the question, you know, write a note to Mother Nature about, specifically about Lewis, and the subject matters, you know, a lot obviously with that with that question were about nature, but some of it was parking, whatever. And then they used that information and presented it to the town council while they were finalizing their 10-year plan. And my concern about, I guess I was trying to apply that to us, and April had the good thought, I think, of maybe having the new town hall where we could bring, because I think it's random to have it completely out of context if we're trying to use this in any way. If people want to feel like their voices are heard, which was the point in Lewis, we need to have some formal way of following through with the information we gather. And this was sort of a symbolic, they presented these felt feet dangling, and brought it and it was on display in the foyer or whatever. So I felt like it was a little ahead of ourselves to pursue it without having a grander scheme. But I think it would be easy to do what April just suggested, going to the skim board again. And those kinds of things, I think, would be a fun project to engage the community in. It's just, what's our goal?
So, do you think it would be beneficial to arrange to see if somebody can speak at our next committee meeting or at the one thereafter, to better help us to understand what they did, why they did it, and if they believe it's had any public impact?
I think it's pretty clear, how they used it and what they did. It's just, I feel like we need to decide what we want to do with it and what our purpose is.
So do we think it would be helpful or unnecessary to have a speaker from that project to discuss it? Or do you think it would be better just for the subcommittee to speak with the people that were involved in that and then bring back to us a little bit more information about what you see as how we may approach this and how that may be beneficial?
I would agree with Kelly. I think the subcommittee might want to talk to someone from Lewis, but until we decide on what input we want to gather from the public and then how we display that input, I'm not sure we, are ready to move forward with this type of project.
Again,
So-
we're missing that marketing element of, if we were fitting in a larger scheme of marketing, I would feel more confident on moving forward.
So I'm hearing you think that it would be beneficial to perhaps look into this, but not do a lot with it until the marketing committee can perhaps work with our committee in that regard? Is that?
I think I hate to keep deferring everything to the marketing committee. I think we're putting a lot of eggs in the marketing committee basket. So I would suggest the subcommittee just needs a little more time to come back to the
So,
climate change committee with a recommendation.
so why doesn't the subcommittee, which I have now, and I've corrected it, sorry about that, everybody, April, Kelly, Mary, and was there anybody else?
Courtney.
Courtney, will explore this further and perhaps prepare an outline that we can consider. If you don't mind sending that to me at least a week in advance so that we can consider it at the next meeting. And then we can figure out if it's something that our committee wants to recommend to the town.
Just as a point of reference, when is the town hall due to open?
It's probably another close to a year and a half.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure, I have to go back and look at the sequencing because the plan is to finish the new town hall building and then tear down the existing building. So, it may that the new town hall building structure may actually be open before a year and a half. I'm just not sure on the sequencing, but the whole project is a good year and a half.
And are there events planned around, anything in advance to that? A year and a half seems long. Is there, are there any things the town is planning during this process that involve the community or announcements or?
There's nothing planned at this point. I know that, the town certainly wants to keep the community up to date in terms of progress, but I'm not aware of anything specific that's planned at this point along the way before the final completion. Then I'm sure there'll be, lots of different kinds of events and celebrations.
So I'm going to then have for our next meeting, hopefully we can re-explore this and the subcommittee can work on that.
Yes.
Does that work? Any member of the public need to comment on that? Yes, Dave? 2 minutes.
David Thomas again. I got the impression, but I do not know for sure, that in the process of doing the Tapestry project, Lewis garnered CRS credit in terms of getting a premium reduction for all the flood insurance policies in Lewis. That certainly would be a species of outreach that marketing or a Tapestry product would do. I would be curious if they tried to get credit, if they did get credit, how much the credit was. The example that I remember is there's a town down by Fort Fisher outside of Wilmington, North Carolina, and as a result of public outreach and educative efforts, they got a tremendous number of CRS credits. I think it was, 5 or 10% just from that.
So thank you for that. I think the subcommittee may want, that may be one of the questions that gets asked.
Yeah, I actually had that in my notes from last meeting, and I think it's a good point. I mean, my ultimate point is we don't want to ask this overreaching broad question and get information back and have the opposite effect where people feel unheard. I want, it to be part, people are contributing and we're presenting the information to the right people in the right venue at the right time.
So we'll look forward to hearing from that subcommittee. Yes. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
for the larger group, are we focusing just on like a resiliency plan and flooding, or the bigger environmental issues of Dewey? Like the big picture, or just like what we're working with on resiliency and flooding?
So I saw that what Lewis did was broader, it appeared. But my suggestion would be that the subcommittee either makes a recommendation on that focus or provides some options for consideration as best as you all believe we should proceed.
And just to add to one last thing about, I do know Amy Resco, they had multiple town halls and some were content, they had a lot of other communications going on. And so that sort of gives me some of my hesitancy to have this sort of lone project out there gathering information that without a larger context. So yeah, that's something we can discuss in a subcommittee.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay, H, that kind of goes along with E about tourist education strategies. Does anybody want to talk about that? I know we had a subcommittee on it, or do you want it just to continue on the agenda? Continue? Thank you. And then, Courtney, do you want to talk about the name?
Sure. I think our takeaway from the last meeting was that we were each going to bring back any suggestions for name changes to share in this meeting. And I am looking at my notes to remind myself of what my suggestions were at the last meeting, because I don't remember at this moment. So if anyone else has some to share, I will capture them in the minutes as I pull up last time.
I think one of your suggestions was climate resiliency.
Or what about just resiliency? I mean, I don't know.
Dewey Beach resiliency or beach resiliency.
Beach resiliency, I'm afraid, would get conflated with.
Well,
but maybe we want that to be.
what I did some research on a lot of the coastal, I shouldn't say a lot, 5 or 6 coastal cities on the East Coast, and also included Texas because they get nailed with hurricanes and they're no strangers to flooding. And I was surprised in some cases. Florida, you wouldn't expect to be politically aligned with the idea of climate change, but yet areas of Florida were right on top of it and are certainly doing the work. West Palm Beach had a whole page devoted to climate change. And it actually included a map of what Florida would look like if sea levels rose 5 feet, which I thought was pretty cool. There's an Office of Sustainability. So by and large, what I found is that most of these places avoid language that is going to make somebody go, ah! So they had an Office of Sustainability. Galveston, Texas, talks about their seawall, which was built in the early 20th century following a huge hurricane that pretty much wiped the city out. And the seawall's been standing since the early 1900s, and it is rebuilt as necessary as time has gone on. Miami was interesting. They had what they called an SLRC. And I had to do a little digging to figure out what that was. But Sea Level Rise Committee. South Florida Water Management District had a sea level rise and flood resiliency plan. I saw a beach resiliency committee, a flood mitigation committee. I really didn't see much that was talking about climate.
So just to refresh our recollection from the last meeting, my notes indicate that Resiliency Committee was suggested, Climate Resilience Committee was suggested, and other than that, we were all to brainstorm and bring back a list. And Sally has clearly done research on it, so I thank you for that. What I'm going to suggest is that perhaps we all give it more thought, send these names to Courtney, and maybe Courtney can produce a list for all of us to consider that would have anybody's suggestions on it. What do you all think of that?
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Is that okay for you, Courtney?
Can I put an
That's
entry?
great.
now?
Yeah,
About Resilience and Sustainability Committee.
Yeah,
I like that.
good one.
Because it covers both the resilience, but also the long-term sustainability of the town.
Take climate out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are we being resilient and sustainable to? That's where I'm having a
And
pause
that's the
here.
catch-22.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, we're talking about sea level rise and the consequences of sea level rise, but, that's part of climate change, and I don't know, it could be a hot button,
So
where everybody understands flooding.
why don't we make an exhaustive list or submitting it to Courtney? Please make sure that you just send it to Courtney. And any suggestions, and then Courtney, thank you for agreeing to take this on. If you will just prepare an exhaustive list of anything anybody suggests, and then we can revisit whether we like any of those. Remember, we're gonna ultimately have to vote first on whether or not we change the name of our committee. And then if we do vote that should occur as a recommendation to the town, then we start considering all of these brainstormed ideas. How do you all feel about that?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Dave, does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Courtney?
That works.
And anybody else who is virtual?
I think it sounds good.
Perfect.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, member of the public, Dave, you want to have something to say about that?
Yes, thank you.
2 minutes.
David Thomas again. I guess I should direct myself to Courtney at this point. As it turns out, there's now a Coastal Resilience Roadmap 2025 from the Nature Conservancy as to the Delaware Bay Shore. And the other thing that came up was that last month, the state of Virginia has a standalone resiliency officer. And it was identified in one of the articles that I read and poked around about, was that makes Virginia the 13th state to have a standalone resiliency officer, somebody whose job title and responsibility is focused on that word. And so I read North Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, they tend to be coastal states. And in one of the lists, it pointed out that while Delaware was mentioned a couple of times, it doesn't have a separate standalone officer like those first 13, but it was mentioned in terms of RASCL, which is a resiliency, and then the other thing in one of the lists was that Kristen, Kristen Thornton, Thornton, was the person in charge of resilience, quote unquote, the resilience officer at DENREC. And her number is 302-739-9173. And on the website there, which I looked up yesterday,
That's 2 minutes.
today
Thank you.
my system crashed. It listed the towns that were partners here in Delaware, and there were several in the coast.
Thank you. That's
So
2
maybe that would be a good way to start to look into it.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments from the committee? And so we will bring that back for next time's discussion. Are there any other additional items that you would like to have added for our next meeting's agenda? Anybody? Any other member of the public have a comment that has not been shared on the topic that we have discussed? No one having said that they do. Liam, did you have something you wanted to address?
I just had 2 quick questions for
Sure.
Gary. First one is, last comprehensive plan for Dewey Beach was 2018. Do you know what cycle are we on, a 10-year cycle for that?
We are on a 10-year cycle, so we're going to have to begin thinking about that in the fairly near future.
Yeah, maybe that's something to consider, is grouping our scope of work into the town comprehensive plan. But we'll look into that.
Okay.
Second question was, who writes the RFPs for the town, or would for this project? Would that be Bill?
I suspect it would not be Bill. It would. My best guess is it probably would end up being me.
Okay.
Since I'm closest to the committee, it probably would be me with, input from Bill and from any other town staff as well. Certainly from Dawn, I would think, and from Jim Beatties as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else from the committee? Motion for adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Any second? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Or